Mike DeCourcey is our guest. He is a senior sports writer at The Sporting News, covers college football, college basketball, the NFL, and just about everything else. And a Pittsburgh native as well, which always puts people like that in the win column for me. Mike, appreciate your time on short notice today. How are you?
I'm doing well, Phil. How are you?
Doing great, man. We're everybody in Arkansas pretty excited about the thought of Isaiah Joe and Mason Jones maybe going in the draft later today. I like reading your piece, which was not a mock draft. It was the top 60 players that you think are eligible, are in the draft out of this class. I think it's more fun reading that than who thinks who's going where. Second round mock drafts never shake out necessarily. Before we get into Mason and Isaiah, what I'm gathering is that the 2020 draft class, which has been through so much, different than any other draft class ever, isn't necessarily the most exciting draft class of all time either. Would that be accurate?
It is not, unless you're into mystery. Like if you want guys that you don't know if they can play or not, that's not usually what excites people about a draft. But I mean, if you want the mystery, is James Wiseman not more than just a talent? I don't know the answer to that. Nothing that I've seen to this point says to me he's more than just a talent. He didn't, at the AAU level, he didn't win. He didn't play to win. In college, he played 3 games and then decided he'd done enough. I know that it was hard going through the suspension, but it was nearly at the end of it when he said, "I'm not coming back." LaMelo Ball. I mean, I wonder sometimes, like, does LaMelo Ball finish breakfast? Because he doesn't finish anything else. I mean, goes to Lithuania, walks through, basically a revolving door, comes back, leaves his high school, goes to Australia, back in 12 games. I mean, it's one thing after the other that he does not finish. And again, I don't see any commitment to being a champion in those kinds of players. I want to see guys. The NBA is loaded with guys who can go on a professional basketball court and look like players. But there's only so many guys who understand how to win, how to play, how to make your teammates better, how to listen to the coaches and take care of your body and all the rest of that stuff. And that's why LeBron and James Harden and guys like that keep showing up at the top of the MVP voting because they know and they get it. And that's why Danny Green's got titles in 3 different uniforms, because he knows and he understands and he's willing to pay that price. I don't know that I see that from a ton of guys, especially the guys that everybody says are the top guys in this draft.
Well, who do you think is the top guy in the draft? And I'm not saying, let's put you in the seat of a general manager of an NBA team. You got the top overall pick and you need everything. You got to start a team from scratch. Out of this draft, who is it you're taking first?
Well, I would trade down because I know I could do it, and I would trade down to a spot where I could comfortably take Obi Toppin. There's no question in my mind that would be what I would do. He's the one player that I trust to be a player, to be a champion. He's going to put everything he can into winning games. He fits the modern NBA. He doesn't fit it at the all-star level, I don't think, but he fits it at the winning team level. He'll go into the NBA and he'll play winning basketball. He makes shots for a player his size, 6'9" or so. He's a very good offensive player. He can play away from the goal. He can play at the rim. He's not the most dynamic guy, which is why he won't go at the very top of the draft. But he'll be out of the guys that are nominated, so to speak, for the top 5 or 6 picks. He'll be the one that I feel best about becoming a successful NBA player.
Mike DeCourcey here with us on Halftime. Mike, let's get your thoughts on the pair of Razorbacks that hopefully will get their name called by Adam Silver tonight. Let's start with Mason Jones. According to your list of top 60, he is unranked right now, and there's some other publications that have him ranked. What's your take on Mason Jones, and do you think he could possibly hear his name called late in the second round this evening?
Absolutely. He's certainly capable of doing that, and I look at Mason as a player who can play both backcourt spots, a guy who can make shots. I think one of the things that's going to affect Mason's value is, one, the fact that they had to play the way they played last year. Their percentages were not attractive because they had to play that way. And it's not the kind of way that you're going to – do we really have to play this way? It's fun. And it did the best for Arkansas under the circumstances, but the numbers weren't going to be there. And then the opportunity to say, okay, well, those aren't really who I am. I can go into a workout and then make, 20 in a row or whatever, and you'll know that I can shoot. You don't really get the same level of opportunity in this environment. I mean, I'm sure he put stuff on tape or did a live like Zoom workouts for different teams and all that, but it's not really the same as getting into a gym and going against someone that the team is considering as well and showing him that you're the better player. I feel bad for guys who are in the circumstances like Mason and Isaiah that they didn't get that chance. And they didn't subsequently get the chance to then go into Summer League and say, I can make NBA threes. Because that's one thing both of them have, is they have the range. They don't have to stretch it that much. Some other guys who are 20-foot shooters, basically, they'll learn to be three-point shooters at the NBA level, but it'll take a little while. I think that both of those guys can go comfortably into the league and say, I can make this shot now.
And when you look on the other side with Isaiah Joe, one of the just dynamite shooter in this draft, and I don't know if necessarily he might be the best shooter, but he's easily in the top 5 of just best three-point shooters, great defender, on-ball defender. And he's been kind of bouncing all around. I've seen some in the first round. I've seen him about middle part of the second round. I think it'll be safe to say he's going to be have his name called tonight. But I think, Mike, the big question is he a late first rounder or an early second rounder?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if he gets into the late first round. I'd be all for that. I think that one of the things that's bothered me about the way the draft has evolved over the last 10 years or so. Look, I'm not against one and done. I'm the champion of one and done. I've written many articles about why guys should play in college and what it does for them. But I also don't think that just because you're a one and done means you're a pro. Just because you're 19 doesn't mean that that's the way to go with your draft picks. A lot of guys, and I think that Mason is, and Isaiah have shown this. They have a lot of room to improve over the course of their careers, and they will. I really like the way they responded to the new system last year, to the way I thought that they played hard. I thought they played to win. I think that really that each of them has great potential. Isaiah, if I picked between the two, as I noted in my rankings, I certainly would take Isaiah over Mason. But both of them are very capable players and guys who I thought played to help make their team better, not just to make themselves look good.
Mike, before we let you go, he's a Pittsburgh native, but he lives in Indianapolis. This is going to be the center of college basketball in a way that no city has ever been in March, hopefully. Indianapolis, to me, seems like the perfect site, the perfect city for an NCAA basketball tournament. As someone who lives there, what do you think about that, and how is the city responding to this idea?
I think there's a level of excitement, obviously not the same as there would be if, you mean we get to have 20,000 people at every game and it's all ours? Yeah, that would be even bigger, I think. But the city certainly wants this, and it's going to embrace it at a high level. And it's the ideal circumstance for the NCAA because this is a very significant logistical challenge that they're facing, to put on a 68-team tournament in which you're not really bubbled, but you're kind of bubbled. And so they have to find all the practice gyms that they can get. And here in Indiana, we have a lot of those. Multiple court venues where the AAU tournaments and things like that are played. We have a lot. We have one that's like the size of Texas, called Grand Park. That's just, it's so big that it's ridiculous. And we have several of those. So I think they'll be able to practice there. We also have really nice high school gyms. Some of the biggest high school gyms in all the world are in Indiana. So that'll help. And then we have, in addition to the site of the Final Four, Lucas Oil Stadium, which is where it was going to be anyway, you have Bankers Life Fieldhouse, you have Hinkle Fieldhouse. You have, if they decide this, and I think they will, to spread it out a little bit, they can go to Assembly Hall in Bloomington or Mackey Arena in West Lafayette where Purdue plays. So they have a lot of those kinds of venues that are close at hand, and that gives them the opportunity to do this. And the logistical challenges that the headquarters staff faces to do this, it's a lot easier for them to resolve issues. If they need to be in person, they can just drive an hour maybe to Indiana, to IU, or 5 minutes over to Bankers Life. They can do that without the kind of necessity of getting on a plane and going out and solving problems in person that way.
It'll be fascinating to see when they do set this thing up. Mike, we'll let you go. I know you got a lot happening. Appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
You bet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mike DeCourcey, give him a follow on Twitter, TSN Mike, his handle, senior writer at Sporting News, pardon me.